Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, and in today's video I want to talk about these rather awesome PS4 controllers, the Razer Raiju and the Nacon Revolution Pro. Both are officially licensed PS4 controllers built with esports in mind. However, if like me, you're not an esports player, then the reason you'll be interested in these is either for the form factor, or because they both feature a number of extra buttons, all of which can be customized to fit your playing profile. If you guys have ever heard of SCUF controllers before, or even the Xbox Elite controller, then these both offer the same sort of functionality. I've actually had my eye on both of these for a while now, and I was trying to decide which one I should pick up, but PlayStation UK very kindly stepped in and sent me both to check out, and show them to you guys. So in this video, we will be unboxing both of them, taking a look at what they have to offer, and ultimately attempting to answer the question, is one better than the other? And if so, which one should you consider getting, assuming of course that you want to get one in the first place. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated, and comment down below and let me know if you guys have got one of these already, and if you haven't, which one do you personally prefer the look of? Now, let's start things off by opening up the Razer Raiju. The first thing you see is of course a letter from Mr. Razer himself, thanks very much. Then below that, the controller actually comes in this very nice hard shell carry case, which is of course perfect if you take your control pads with you to events or friends' houses. It means you can keep everything in one place and it doesn't get bashed around. Before we dive inside, however, below that we have the instruction manual. Normally I would of course skip over these things, but this does explain how to set profiles, remap your controller, etc. So it's probably worth a quick glance. And then below that you have a 3 meter long braided USB cable, very nice indeed. I'm a big fan of braided cables, they're much more durable, again great if you intend to travel around with this thing. And on one end you of course have your regular USB cable to plug into the PS4, and on the other end is a mini USB to go into the controller. Both of them also have these nice little protective caps on too, so again good for travelling. So, with that out of the way, turning our attention back to the pouch. Unzipping this, we can see the controller itself, and this does look really nice. On the front, you have all the buttons you would expect on a PS4 controller. Your D-pad, your triangle, circle, square and X buttons, the share and home buttons, as well as the touchpad too. The analog placement mirrors that of the conventional PS4 controller. The only difference is that it comes with these blue rubber caps on top that provide extra grip. Sort of like inbuilt control freaks, however if you don't like these, then they are actually removable. On the bottom, you then have this small tray of buttons. This allows you to remap your controller and cycle between any profiles you may already have assigned, as well as to mute your audio and adjust your volume. And of course, below that is your 3.5mm headphone jack. However, turning it over, you will then see the back looks a little bit different, and this is where the customization comes in. You have two multifunction triggers that can both be pulled, like triggers, or pressed on the top, like buttons. You have trigger stop switches, so if you don't want to press your triggers all the way down to shoot, you can lock these in and you can then fire quicker on the trigger pull, which is great for shooters, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, less so for things like racing games where you need the trigger as a throttle. You also have a couple of multifunction bumpers parallel to the shoulder buttons, and the standard triggers, your L2 and R2, are now much more defined triggers, much more similar to those that you would find on an Xbox One controller. Now with regards to the triggers on the back, the reason they become useful is because if you guys play something like say Call of Duty or Battlefield, it allows you to map actions that would normally be performed via the standard triangle, circle, square or cross buttons and put them on the triggers at the back, which in turn then allows you to perform a simple function without having to move your thumb off the right analog stick. Think things like aiming and jumping, aiming and crouching, etc. And then finally, if you don't like the triggers on the back, or perhaps you bought the controller more for the form factor and don't see yourself using the extra functionality, you can then use the included screwdriver to remove them should you wish. So, that's a quick look at the Raiju. We'll come back to this in a moment, but now let's unbox the Nacon. Opening this up, you're greeted by what looks like a controller birthday cake. This is just the cardboard cover. Don't worry, the controller looks much cooler than this. This is the controller. And immediately, you'll probably notice one of the biggest, most glaring differences, especially if you are a PS4 player, is the analog stick placement. This is much more akin to that of the Xbox One controller. Again, coming back to this in a second, below that you also have your instructions. This one also comes with a small carry case, not a hard shell padded case like the Raiju, but it does come with a nice drawstring cloth bag. It'll stop it from getting scratched, sure, but it probably wouldn't help much if you dropped it. It does, however, have a little zip on the side to store the cleaning cloth or the weights, which I'll speak about in a second. Below that, you then once again have a nice 3 meter long braided cable, which of course is detachable. The connection point for this one is an interesting 5-pin adapter. I'm sure it's great, but if you intend to take this in and out frequently, I would be very careful with this so as to avoid damaging the pins. And then below that is the series of aforementioned weights. If you look at the controller, on the very bottom are these compartments. You can use the key they provided to twist the cap, it then pulls out, and then it has these slots for some of the weights to go in. I've personally never been one to mess around with my controllers to this degree, but I do understand the value and I know that some of you out there probably would make good use of this, so the option is there. Taking a look at the controller itself again, on the front you still have your standard PS4 buttons, however the analog sticks, as mentioned, are staggered. The right one has a dome top, meanwhile the left one is concave. The D-pad, however, is the other major differentiating factor here. This is an 8-way D-pad, and it actually reminds me a lot of the D-pad from the old Xbox 360 controllers. This will be a big divide for people. Some people like these, some people hate them. They certainly don't feel as defined as a regular D-pad, so if you're in a game that makes heavy use of the pad, there's a chance it might throw you off. But on the flip side, one type of game in particular that often does get good use out of these are fighting games. Now yes, a lot of people do play on fighting sticks, but if you are a pad player, then D-pads like this are more commonly seen. They're even present on some of those fight pads that are commonly sold, and they're useful for things like, say, quarter circle inputs, shoryukens, etc. Then jumping over to the back, you have 4 extra shortcut buttons. Each of these paddles is 2 buttons in one, so depending on what feels most comfortable, you can press them in different ways, or they can actually function as separate buttons. You also have a mode switch and a profile button. The mode switch jumps between the Pro Controller mode, that sees it behave the same as a standard PS4 controller, but the Advanced mode, number 2, lets you access different profiles. Now the controller comes with 4 profiles preset, and you can cycle between them by pressing the profile button. However, if you want to make your own, then there's an accompanying companion app for your PC where you can assign macros to the shortcut buttons. You can completely remap the buttons should you want to, adjust the sensitivity in the dead zone of the triggers and the right analog stick, alter the vibration intensity, and also alter the backlight for the right analog stick. So there's of course a lot you can do here. However, this does appear to be something you have to do via a PC. It doesn't list Mac support, so Mac users, you might want to keep this in mind. Now, both controllers are extremely comfortable to hold. They both have a very nice form factor to them, and in truth, that is for me the main draw. I've never really been someone that really needs the extra trigger functionality. I just like a nice ergonomic controller that is comfortable to hold and gets the job done. I play a lot on both PS4 and Xbox One, and while each controller has its strengths and weaknesses, I've always ultimately preferred the form factor and ergonomic feel of the Xbox One controller. So to be able to have that on my PS4 is already an instant win. But how do they stack up when compared against one another? Well, here's the tricky thing. See, neither of them are perfect, and both of them have features I wish the other one had. Take the Razer Raiju to begin with. This is clearly the better quality product, from the way it's packaged and presented in the hardshell case to the functionality on the controller. Putting aside the fancy lights on the Nacon, there's a lot more you can do with the Razer, and it's also much more easily accessible. You don't have to go via a PC companion app to mess around with it. If you want quickfire triggers, flick a switch. If you want to remap the buttons, just do it via the button tray. Don't like the grippy analog sticks? Take the caps off, etc. So it's all there, right in front of you, no messing around. It also feels super comfortable to hold. I mean, they both do, but I'd say the Razer has the edge ever so slightly. Still with the ergonomic shape, but it also has these rubber grips on the bottom, so for those long play sessions, it's definitely going to be the one I would prefer. The Raiju also has a nice conventional D-pad. It has analog stick placement that mirrors the PS4 controller, so if you're primarily a PS4 player, this will feel more at home. The only thing I don't like about the Raiju are the triangle, circle, square, and X buttons. They don't feel very responsive. You don't get a very tactile feeling when you press them. They're super light, they don't press down very far, and while yes, maybe this was a design choice to make them more responsive for the esports market, I personally find it a little bit annoying. The Nacon, on the other hand, again a very nice controller to hold. It's actually got this silicone matte texture to it, which is nice. It's not glossy, so if your hands get sweaty, it won't suddenly become slippy. It also has the staggered analog stick placement that is present on the Xbox One controller. I actually really like this, probably more so than the default PS4 analog stick placement, so that is a win for me. The D-pad is something I could get used to. Again, as mentioned earlier, for this, it'll heavily depend on your games. I feel like for fighting games, this will be great. It might just be a little bit annoying for other games further down the line, but then you'll get used to it, so it's not exactly a negative in my books. As for the triangle, square, circle, and X buttons, these are really, really good. They're actually pretty big as well, putting them a little bit close together, but they feel so good to press. Super tactile, very responsive, and again, that'll be great for fighters. The triggers, on the other hand, they're still good, and they're better than those that you would find on a regular PS4 controller, but they're not quite as good as the Raiju's. And the buttons on the back, they're in a really good place, and they're easy to reach and press, provided you're using the bottom half. Pressing the top half of the paddles feels a little bit unnatural, but again, something you could easily get used to. So, with all the pros and cons in mind, which one wins? Well, if I could have my own way, I would probably take the form factor and general functionality of the Razer Raiju, stagger the analog sticks a little bit, and then take the Nacon buttons. But since I can't do that, this isn't a custom controller workshop, then if I had to pick one, I would definitely take the Razer Raiju. Which is actually really interesting, because prior to receiving them and testing them out, I was very close to ordering the Nacon Revolution Pro instead, and that decision was driven purely by the analog stick placement. So what I would say is this. If you're looking for a controller that just feels good to hold, has a nice form factor, and is perhaps an Xbox style controller for your PS4, either of these is a winner. If functionality is what you want, while the Nacon has plenty of options via the PC, I would ultimately still recommend the Raiju for ease of use and general comfort. I feel like if you're the sort of person that wants paddles on the back of your controller, you prefer the feel of the Raiju. If you plan to play fighting games more than shooters, especially with say Marvel vs. Capcom, Street Fighter V Season 2 and Injustice on the horizon, then I'd go for the Nacon. And of course, if shooters are your jam, then I'd jump back to the Raiju. So, in summary, there's no clear standout winner that is miles better than the other. They are both super solid controllers, very nice to use, and give you a lot more options to play with than a standard controller. But if I absolutely had to pick one, then once again, it would be the Razer Raiju. So, hopefully you guys found this helpful. Again, let me know if you have any questions down below. But thank you very much for watching. Again, shout out to PlayStation for very kindly sending these my way. And take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.